Hey guys, Thomas Sulu Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm at the live theater at Providence, where I'm about to watch Terminator Genisys, and look at the theater, right? It is empty, guys. Yikes. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in just a second. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the theater is empty. There is no one here, guys. There's a nice snow pan. Gotta walk around a little bit. The movie isn't on, so, I'm not pirating anything right now, but, Hey guys, Thomas Sulu Jr. here, aka Mustache Tom, and here's my spoiler review for Terminator Genisys. So, when I first reacted to the Terminator Genisys, I was, sort of taken aback to when this was supposed to be taking place as far as the timeline was concerned, and I'm sure that drew a lot of concern for a lot of other people. And the trailer I saw didn't have apparently what a lot of other critics I think were saying were this sort of extra spoilers in it, which is unfortunate that that had to happen. But it's not the trailer I saw, so I'm glad that I didn't see this apparent spoiler trailer. But I will get into that a little bit later. But anyways, this movie takes place at the start in the future, where Kyle Reese is explaining what this world is like and how he's a part of this future and all that stuff, and enjoying the beautiful world as it is, like all nice and good, and then it transitions into this sort of nightmare, the Judgment Day sort of world, and we see Kyle Reese as a kid getting saved by John Connor in this little tunnel as he's running away as a kid. And we were further explaining the story, and then finally, at some point, John Connor wants to send someone back in time because of the Terminator that was sent back to kill John Connor, of course, or I mean Sarah Connor, I guess. So Kyrie steps up to the plate and he accepts his role as the person going in to save uh, Sarah. And upon getting there and landing in the cityscape, apparently the cops are called, and I kind of made a joke about that in the reaction. The cops chase him as he manages to get on some clothes. I think it was just pants at that point, and they end up in a clothes store. And at some point, another Terminator is introduced. The new Terminator that we see in the trailers. This new Terminator, it's all liquid. It's one of the liquid ones. I forget what number model it was, but he's after Kyle Reese, and the one of the cops is taken out, and one of them sees what happened and is sort of just left there. So I think that was a bit of a plot hole there, leaving that cop alive. I don't know what that would have changed if like his what he, anyways. But before I did miss something. When Kyle Reese went into the time machine, he saw John Connor getting attacked or something was happening to him. It was really unclear as to what was happening, at least for me, and that was sort of the spoiler, which will be up further ahead. But anyways, Reese. Keep getting these two confused because their characters are kind of a little similar in this movie. Reese ends up running away into the store, as I said, and then he sees that Sarah Connor drives into the store, and she's doing the whole thing, come with me if you want to live, and he's confused because he doesn't understand why this is happening. It shouldn't have happened this way, clearly. And as they're driving, she's trying to explain that sort of poorly because he sees the Terminator and he freaks out and tries to kill it, and then she explains that this Terminator was on her side, that this Terminator taught her, was sent back to teach her apparently how to be ready for what was coming, all about the mission stuff, and they left it to be a mystery as to who sent this Terminator back to even earlier Sarah Connor's life to save her. So, I guess that's something that is. There are a few things that are missing here, but anyways, after that happens, after Sarah sort of saves her, and then they start going on this journey to figure out what their plan is, and from there, the Terminator is with them, so on and so forth. Eventually, we see that the they end up time traveling together. These two to a certain point slightly before the Judgment Day is about to happen, arguing which point in time would be the most accurate, and there's all this stuff about two memories and fake memories, and there's all these action sequences with Terminators fighting each other or all that stuff. And that's the thing about this movie, is that there's always seems to be a Terminator in threat of our heroes. There's the classic Terminator, who's Arnold, who's sent to kill them, or Sarah. There's the liquid model that's constantly chasing them. And then at some point it ends up being John Connor, who's been now fused with these the machines, like nano machines, like something you would see out of Metal Gear almost. And I guess like this is the part that was spoiled for a lot of people in the trailers. I didn't see this in the initial trailers, and I went back to see my own reaction of it, and it wasn't there. So I guess that was another separate trailer that was showing that some people must have seen, and it sort of really took them out of the movie. It was a surprise to me, so I really got a kick of seeing John Connor be the villain of this movie. I think he did a decent job for what it was. He did come off as typical sort of bad guy, even like, just like doing his bit, I guess. So that was happening, and they ended up I think the date was 2017. Was apparently when Genisys, this program that Skynet was working on, was going to be unleashed on that date. So they went to that period of time. They get arrested, and J.K. Simmons makes his return to this movie, and he somehow knows already what happened after in the past. It does get a little confusing how he knows that, but like I said, alternative worlds, alternative timelines. There's different stuff going on here. So, anyways, they manage to escape, and they run into John Connor, and he's trying to pull off these lines that convince these two that he's a human. Then the Terminator Arnold shows up after waiting for them to make their appearance in this timeline, and he's all older now and stuff, or his skin is older. Thus, making a new chase scene where Terminator hits him down, and they see that John is a now sort of new sort of Terminator, and a new sort of chase begins between them and this new Terminator, John, through the city of 2017. I think that was the date again. They end up on the bus where we see the typical, the over the top sort of bus flipping over, the whole helicopter stuff that was happening, and Arnold saying his line, his vintage line of "I'll be back." Just sort of all this over the top stuff. Really got a kick out of all the other Arnold stuff, the one liners, the smiling factor was got a kick out of the few people that were in the theaters when I went to see it. And I made a joke about that, and you'll see that in the the edit that I'll make. So, anyways, they end up at Skynet. They have to set these charges to blow up this thing, and Skynet is there to try to prevent them. It turns out that Skynet itself is this entity that can take actual form. It starts off as a child, and then you see it transform into an older Skynet thing, and it reduces the time. And they also have to deal with John, the Skynet nanomachined John, I guess I'll call him. I don't know, but it just gets crazy. Terminator and him duke it out. At one point, the John Connor nanomachine guy takes off Arnold's arm, and I thought that was a really clever what do you call it? Like a send off to the first or second movie. I don't know which one it was, but at one point they had the scene where they're in Skynet and they see the arm, and I suppose that's the very same arm. It could be. I don't know, but anyways, Arnold ends up getting liquefied, and he gets these upgrades at the end of the film. But before that, he has to take out John, and they end up in the time machine. And through the lore that has already been established through previous Terminator films, we know that they're going to end up getting destroyed. So he ends up getting the John Connor robot thing gets destroyed. Terminator gets flung into this liquid stuff. And at one point in the movie, I'm sorry I'm going back and forth, but I'm trying to remember bits and pieces of it. But Sarah ends up bumping into younger Kyle Reese, and then at the end of the movie, we see that return. We see little Kyle Reese there, and then bigger Kyle Reese talks to himself, telling him the message of the false memories that were never happening, and that would create. I guess that would sort of bleed into the first movie, how he would know his mission when he grew up and would turn out to take out the new version of Skynet, which would be called Genisys, even though they blew up the building. Apparently, there must have been some other facility, maybe. I think, again, there are parts of this that are a bit unexplained, but I think they did try to set up certain parts of it that were saying, this is how this part of this movie makes sense, and in those aspects it does, I guess. The whole arm thing, I think they didn't have to spell it out. I think it's assumed that the arm that was cut off was just sort of left there at Skynet at some point, and somebody's probably picked it up in the refuse of this mess that it was blown up Skynet. They pick it up, they see that this is a technical advantage. They probably set up the new Skynet. Again, I think that does set up the first movie in a weird sort of way. I mean, if that was all it took, I guess that, again, equates to that. I'm not necessarily 100% sure. I think that's what they were going for without actually saying it flat out. And there are other bits and pieces that I think set up the first movie, since this is sort of a prequel, even though parts of it do take place in the future. So, I think from the other reviews I've seen, I think a majority of them seem to be on the negative spectrum. A lot of them not able to get into the mood of this movie. Maybe it was from the spoilers. Maybe it was the lack of action. And I thought there was enough of that. I think Arnold did fantastic as always. I think the female lead, I can't remember her name, but she's the one that was playing Sarah. I think she did a pretty damn good job. We can see her sort of developing in the story, even as a badass, and I think that was a pretty good character. To see a badass develop in that sort of way kind of reminds me of like Furiosa, someone who was a badass and then she still sort of transforms a bit in her movie. Um, so I really enjoyed this movie. I think it was worth one watch. Um, Sort of like Jurassic World. I think this movie. I think I would agree with one other review I saw. I think this definitely is better than the third movie and the fourth movie as well. Definitely the fourth movie. I couldn't even remember the name of the fourth movie, so that tells you that I couldn't even remember what it was called. So, and I don't even remember most of what happens in that movie, to be honest. I mean, sure, a lot of people, and the argument is clearly there that this is not as good as Terminator 1 or 2, but I think that this would have made a fantastic Terminator 3. I think this should have been Terminator 3. Um, and I think that does. I think if the movie saga were to end here, I would be satisfied, but I mean, I'm sure that's probably going to continue on with or without Arnold. I think he's all set. Um, they do sort of have that new actor that did the new Terminator there, so they can bring him back if they're gonna continue this, and he can sort of be the new Terminator if they want to go for that. That new Terminator, by the way, I don't think he had any lines. Someone else brought that up, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't think he talked at all. So it'd be interesting to bring him back if they are going to continue this. He can sort of take over as the new Terminator. I think that would be fine if that's what they want to go for. But I don't know where they would go next in the timeline since it is all over the place. So it's definitely not a perfect movie, but I don't think it's a bad movie either. I think it's a solid movie, sort of like, again, like I said, it definitely reminded me of Jurassic World in that sense of it was okay. There were flaws here and there, and most of them have to do with the timeline. And if you can sort of make sense of sort of some of those aspects of the timeline, then you can go, yeah, okay, that makes sense a little bit. Um, and whether or not you get up with this whole alternative timeline, that aspect might be a bit more confusing. On which timeline ends up leading into the first movie. Um, you know. Um, but again, I guess that is to be expected of time travel. It is sort of gonna happen, and I think they did explain it a little bit in this movie, like when Reese time traveled, when he got a glimpse of Connor getting grabbed. Arnold was explaining that theoretically he could see this alternative timeline of something that was going to end up happening because he sort of lived through it technically. Um, like it was always destined, I guess, that he was going to end up talking to his younger self, and telling himself about this warning of what's going to set up the first movie. So I actually think it does kind of work out. And there are other aspects that are still a little bit puzzling, like the version of J.K. Simmons. I don't remember his character's name, but is that cop apparently knows this, and again, that cop that also saw all that, those two factors, they don't seem to have any place in the Terminator movie. And I could be wrong. I may have just missed it, but I may have to have gone to the other Terminator movies and look back and see if those reactions make any sense. I don't know, but I still think this is a solid movie. Definitely better than the last two movies that we had to go through. For me personally, I think they are. This movie is way better than those two. Not better than the first two. So it's a in between movie. So with that being said, I think I will end the review here, and I'll have a little pre thing, unlike every other episode I've done. But with that being said, I'm gonna give it a final score, a 7 out of 10, or 8 out of 10, somewhere in between there. I definitely did enjoy this movie. I thought it was pretty damn good, and I think it is worth the watch. It was sort of sad to see so little people. I think again, there must have been something that either must have been through the trailers or just I don't know what ended up happening, but it really killed this movie's potential probably. But anyways, that's the end of this review. So this has been Thomas Jr., aka Mustache Tom, and I'll see you guys next time.